Hey, what's up guys? Combat Critic here. In this video, I want to give my pick for this upcoming fight between Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush. This fight has been scheduled for UFC 289. This is the co-main event. So let's get started. If we look at the records of these two guys, starting with Charles Oliveira, so he has 43 fights and he's won 33, lost just 9. If we talk about his 33 wins, 9 wins via knockout, 21 via submission. So more than half his wins are via sub and just 3 via decision. So this man is a finishing machine and most of his fights end in a finish. If we talk about his 9 losses, 4 have come via knockout, 4 via sub and just 1 via decision, and he also has 1 no contest. So just by looking at it, you can say that this guy is a really exciting fighter and not a lot of his fights have gone the distance. Now let's talk about this man right here. So Beneil has 27 fights and he's won 22, lost 4. If we talk about his 22 wins, 5 have come via knockout, 8 via sub, 9 via decision. And if we talk about the 4 losses, he's been KO'd 3 times and lost via sub just once. And he has never lost via decision. So all 9 of his fights that went the distance, he's won all of them. And he also has 1 draw. So if we look at the record, first of all, we see he has significantly less MMA experience than Charles Oliveira, even though these guys are almost the same age. Charles has a lot more experience fighting in MMA as well as fighting in the UFC. He's fought the top level guys. He was the champion. He's fought the ranked top 3 guys, top 5 guys. He's fought more ranked guys than Beneil Dariush. However, Beneil, where he really shines is he is winning all the decisions, and he might not have the best knockout power, but if the fight goes to the distance, you can say that Beneil will likely win the fight. Now let's look at some of the other stats, including the physical as well as the career stats. So height is 5 feet 10 for both these guys, so nobody really has an advantage. So this fight is scheduled at lightweight, and I don't think anybody will miss weight for this fight. If we talk about the reach, it is 74 inches for Charles and 72 inches for Beneil. So Charles has a slight 2-inch reach advantage. Stance is orthodox for Charles and southpaw for Beneil. If we talk about the age, both these guys are 1989 born, so age will not be a factor in this fight. Now let's talk about the career statistics. And if we start with the striking numbers, first up we have the strikes landed per minute. So this signifies the number of significant strikes that you land on your opponent per minute on average. This is 3.48 for Charles and 3.81 for Beneil. So both these guys are pretty close, but a slight advantage goes to Beneil. He lands a lot more strikes, slightly more strikes than Charles. Striking accuracy is 53% for Charles and it is 49%. So again, very even, but here the slight advantage goes to Charles. Now let's talk about the strikes absorbed per minute. So this signifies the number of strikes that you absorb from your opponent per minute on average. This is 3.2 for Charles. We know he gets hit a lot, and if we talk about Beneil, it is 2.55. So Beneil is, a little bit more conservative, and in this case, the lower number is actually better because you are getting hit lesser than your opponent. So in this case, the advantage goes to Beneil. He gets hit lesser than Charles. If we talk about the striking defense, it is 51% for Charles and 58% for Beneil. So again, a slight advantage goes to Beneil here as well. Overall, in the striking, I believe Charles has the flashy striking, whereas Beneil is much more conservative. He doesn't get hit as often as Charles. And the thing that worries me about Charles is his chin. He has been knocked down a lot of times in his previous fights, and this is one thing which concerns me. If he uses his, flashy elbows, flying knees, that kind of style against Beneil, so he might get knocked down. And Beneil is the guy that if he knocks down Charles, he will go for the submission. He'll not let him stand back up to his feet like a lot of opponents of Charles have done in the past. Now let's talk about the wrestling, grappling, and BJJ statistic. If you talk about the takedown average, it is 2.37 for Charles and 1.95 for Beneil. So Charles has is slightly a busier guy when it comes to the takedown department, and he will have an advantage here. Takedown accuracy is just 40% for Charles, and it is 34% for Beneil. So again, the advantage goes to Charles. Takedown defense 55% for Charles and 80% for Beneil. We saw this in his last fight against Mateusz Gamrot. He has the takedown defense advantage. If we talk about the submission average, it is 2.8 for Charles and just 0.9 for Beneil. So even though both these guys are good on the ground, but Charles is just levels above and he will have the BJJ advantage, I believe, in this fight. However, Beneil is no slouch either. Now let's talk about the significant strikes by position. So 58% of all the strikes that Charles throws are from the standing position, 21% from the clinch, and 21% on the ground. If we talk about the Beneil, 66% in the standing position, 16% in the clinch, and 18% on the ground. So for Charles, he has a lower percentage in the standing position, but higher in the clinch and on the ground, whereas Beneil is mostly 66% or two-thirds of all his strikes are in the standing position. Very few are in the clinch. If we talk about the significant strikes by target, so 57% of all the strikes that Oliveira throws are to the head, 28% to the body, and 15% to the leg. We know that Charles Oliveira likes to mix in a lot of things. He'll throw in an elbow and then, a flying knee, jumping kick, or whatever. Whereas for Beneil, 61% are to the head, 23% to the body, and 16% to the leg. So he really, both these guys are pretty similar, but Beneil usually headhunts a little more than Charles Oliveira. He doesn't throw spinning, crazy spinning or, flying knee attempts like Charles does. And although he has a spinning, knockout on his resume, let's see that. If we talk about the previous performances of these two guys, starting with Charles, in his last fight, he lost to Islam Makhachev, and this came in the second round. This fight happened in October of last year, and before that, he was on a tear, and he was, I believe, on a 12-fight winning streak where he beat Justin Gaethje, finished him in the first round via rear naked choke, knocked him down, and before that, he beat Dustin Poirier also via rear naked choke in the third round, finished Michael Chandler via TKO in the second round, dominated Tony Ferguson to win a unanimous decision, beat Kevin Lee via guillotine choke in the third round, and KO'd Jared Gordon in the first round itself. If we talk about Beneil, in his last fight, he beat Mateusz Gamrot and surprised a lot of people, and he beat him via unanimous decision. This fight also took place in October of last year on the same pay-per-view, which is UFC 280. And before that, he dominated Tony Ferguson to win via unanimous decision. He beat Carlos Diogo Ferreira via split decision, and this was also a pretty dominant win for him. Before that, he beat Scott Holtzman via KO spinning back fist. So he has, spinning attacks, but not to the extent that Charles has. And before that, he KO'd Drucker Close. He beat Frank Camacho via rear naked choke, Drew Dober via submission arm triangle, and dominated Thiago Moises to win a unanimous decision. And before that, he lost to Alexander Hernandez via knockout in the first round. However, this fight was took place back in 2018, so I believe he has improved a lot since then. So overall, I think we have one guy who is a little bit more flashier, takes a little bit more risk in Charles Oliveira versus a guy who is somewhat, conservative and usually wins via decision. If I have to pick a winner of this fight, I think it is almost 50-50. However, I am leaning with Beneil Dariush. I think he is a little bit more safe. He plays a little bit more safe than Charles Oliveira. And Charles Oliveira, the problem is he has been knocked down by most of his opponents in the past. He was knocked down by Michael Chandler, he was knocked down by Justin Gaethje, and I think the problem with those guys were they were not willing to engage with Charles once they had him on the ground. However, because Beneil is good in BJJ, I think if he knocks down Charles, he'll jump on the opportunity like Islam did, and he might finish Charles. That is why I'm picking him to win this fight. It is a very close fight. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll see you guys in the next video.